Hey, what's up, everybody? We're back with the Symbiō Cannabis podcast, and we got Aaron Nosbish here as usual, and we got a special
Hey,
guest, Chris Thayer. Thanks for joining us, Chris.
Hey, everybody.
So we get a lot of people reaching out to us, asking if they should vertically integrate their hemp operations or their CBD brands. And so we brought Chris on to talk about that. Chris has been in the extraction game for about 20 years. And so he's opened up multiple labs all over the country. And so he's deeply involved in the CBD and the THC side of things. And so thanks for joining us once again, Chris.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
Awesome. So recently we've been talking about why it's not a good idea right now to set up an extraction lab in the CBD industry, especially. And why is that?
Well, and I mean, it's more complicated than that. I think it's important that your timing is right for setting up extraction. And it used to be, some time ago when extraction was the hardest thing for people to acquire, and it was difficult to learn how to do. So there weren't very many extractions out there. So there was a lot of biomass, and everybody thought to themselves, we need a lot of extraction to get through this biomass. We have all these products to make, and everybody built up this a big extraction place, expecting to be able to sell oil to other people. Well, while they were doing that, there were guys setting up giant laboratories that can pump out 10 barrels every 4 hours. And with extraction like that going on, it doesn't make any sense to start an extraction facility with the thought or hopes of selling that oil on the open market at whatever going rate. But it does make sense, on the other hand, to have an extraction facility that is geared for vertical integration. But I find that it makes more sense to do that after you already have the customer base. You're just doing it in the wrong order in most cases. I mean, it's a huge expense to set up this giant extraction facility that's not going to it doesn't help get you anywhere until way later in the game. So
people don't even have a sales or marketing plan. They're just like, I'm going to build this huge lab, and then think that they're just going to get, if they build it, they will come type of mentality.
Yeah, They're not coming anymore. It's way cheaper somewhere else because they were already oil makers, and they understood about the logistics. And I mean, it's hard to compete with them, and it always was. I mean, even in the cannabis industry, it was the same way. The big brands, the ones that you really think of when you think of, vape pens or California marijuana and cannabis. I mean, those big brands were built around a model where they bought their oil from somewhere else. And I mean, eventually a lot of them moved into making their own oil. But I mean, that was not a first step action. That was a way down the line.
After you establish the brand, like that's very smart to do it that way. And like because of the fact that the prices have gone way down. Like, I mean, when I got into this 5 or 6 years ago, probably a kilo of CBD isolate was $40,000. I think it's like under $1,000 now or something.
Yeah. And I mean, you can get it for, I mean, I've heard, horror stories of people selling out their whole thing for $600 a kilo. You know what I'm saying? Just so they can get out of the whole thing. I have buddies that'll buy it, you know what I mean? But they won't buy it for anything more than that. And I mean, that's just what I mean, at the end of the day, making oil in the hopes of selling it to other people is only really it's the fast lane. That's the Ferrari lane of cannabis. You don't want to get into that unless you have a $10 million setup and you've got a supply chain and you've got everything really worked out with logistics and all of that kind of stuff. You don't really want to get into all of that stuff. You're going to want to be able to figure out what to do with your spent biomass. You're going to have a lot going on to make sense in order for that to be profitable and you to keep the numbers down low enough, because the guys that are doing it in those bulk scenarios right now have found alternate sources of income from all of this stuff. And a lot of times they'll figure out how to make it so that they're essentially getting paid to run the oil. So the oil itself is essentially free by the time they figure out how to make the rest of it into, like hempcrete and, you know,
Yeah.
plastics and whatever else it is that they're manufacturing in these giant facilities. And I mean, it's let them do that. That's that big fast lane. Let them do that. If you want a great product, find a great oil manufacturer and work with them. You'll buy the oil for so much cheaper than you can make it yourself. You won't even know what to do with yourself, and it won't make any sense to do. Then eventually, you can cut that margin. When you have a bunch of sales, you can cut that margin down by you know, building a place and getting all of that done, and that's the right time to do it. So,
you know, I talked about this a lot with right after the Farm Bill. Everyone thought that the key to the game was vertical integration. That was now we have the opportunity. Let's go big. Let's do it. And I told people quite a bit back then. I go, you know, here's the thing, guys. That you have all of this availability. Whoever has enough money can buy the equipment in order to get into this game. But all of these people, they're missing one thing, which is their demand curve. They don't have the demand necessary to fulfill to fulfill the need for this equipment. And so it's you know, it was true back then. I think, and I think it's more than ever true now. But, you know, it seems like there was a period of time where there was just so much demand for CBD, where some people were getting in it with smaller factories or smaller manufacturing facilities and still being able to turn a profit. But has that time officially passed? It seems like it has.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's officially passed. Unless you figured out a very clever solution. I mean, if you're working with, you know, I mean, even as something as large as a pilot plant, I mean, competing with the real actual production plants is going to be very difficult. And I mean, even if you have a trick up your sleeve or something like that, it's hard to compete. Not to mention, there's so much oil on the market. You really have to have a place to sell it, because just having it isn't enough. You have to have it on fire sale before you're going to get somebody to just buy it from you that you don't know.
Yeah, and one of the best solutions that I've seen is for manufacturers and extraction labs to create multiple brands in-house, as long as they have marketing strategies and sales strategies for their own in-house brands.
No, absolutely. Having in-house marketing and sales strategies for your own brands is fantastic. And in the meantime, as we were just talking about, you can buy your CBD for so cheap right now. There are people fire selling that stuff just to get it out the door.
So there's really no reason to do your own extraction. You could just do your own manufacturing. You could be buying bulk super cheap and then making your own products under your own brands. And then you could hire somebody like Aaron to crush your Facebook ads.
There you go. No, and that's a business. And that makes sense. And you can actually execute that. And there isn't this big looming problem in the background where you have the shelf that you planned on, you know, you set up the shelf. So this is the stuff that we've got, and this is the stuff that we're going to sell. And it turns out into like, this is the stuff we got, and this is the stuff we're going to sell. And we don't know how we're going to sell this stuff yet, but we know we will someday. And we're sitting on it until then. You don't want to be that guy in that spot.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, buy it as you need it. You know what I'm saying? And like, if you ever think that there's ever going to be a shortage or a problem, or that there's going to change regulations or anything like that, then you think about buying barrels. You know what I'm saying? But in the meantime, you know, keep yourself stocked up maybe 1.5 over, and you should be in good shape. There's so much oil on the market, it's ridiculous. And I mean, I don't see any incoming situation where we're going to run out of biomass for CBD anytime soon. I mean, THC every once in a while it'll start running low on the totem pole towards the end of the year, but I don't think we're going to have that problem with CBD.
Gotcha. Interesting.
So is this kind of applied to across the board different extraction types? So whether it's isolate or ethanol extraction, or CO2, supercritical, butane, kind of all across the board, people are seeing the same. Okay, cool. And I see, so you guys who don't see him, I see Chris shaking his head that that's what's happening. And so one follow-up question to that is there an opportunity for any type of craft extractions, whether it's rosin or cold press, where it's not really okay? So
you read my mind, Aaron. I was going to ask him that next.
No, that's awesome. That's an awesome question, and I think that there's a huge market. There's an enormous market for all of that kind of stuff, and I think it's great. Excuse me, not a COVID cough, I promise. But that was a bong hit cough But at any rate, I think with craft extraction, there's always room for craft extraction. If you have a craft extract brand already, and you're you know what I'm saying, like there is no way to buy craft extracts to do your extract company.
Totally.
That's not really a thing. So if your vision is craft extracts and you know what you're doing and you want to make rosin, or you want to do some like high end, you know, like hydrocarbon stuff, I mean, that's what I do. So
yeah,
I'm all for it. There's always a place for it. Just make sure that you have that your entrance to market strategy is realistic and makes sense. And generally speaking, you know, I mean, just tack on 1.5 times whatever you originally came up with, being conservative. So you come up with a number being conservative, tack on 1.5 years to, or 1.5 times to that, and you're probably going to be pretty accurate about how long it's going to be before you're actually, you know what I'm saying, like penetrated the market and you're making big moves and things are working out.
Yeah,
my experience is that it takes years.
And then probably the same with the dollar amount, like whatever you plan, tack on another 1.5 times that.
Oh yeah, no, definitely.
It's always going to cost more and take longer than you thought.
Yeah, especially, and I mean, and if it's THC, the THC world, and especially in California, that's very true. And I think that as we move forward with cannabis, there's going to be, you know, there's always new things and stuff that's changing, you know what I'm saying? But like, one of the sure fast things is that people want high-end oil to smoke and or to use in some way like that. And I think that creating that high-end oil and you know, making it into vape or making it into any of that stuff, there's always room for it, especially if you've done well and it tastes good and it's a pleasurable experience. People like that sort of thing. And so
totally.
And it can be done very inexpensively as long as you know what you're doing. If you're, I mean, aside from hydrocarbon. So like, if
I was just gonna say, like a rosin setup. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, it's rosin. A lot of it's skill, and so like, you know, if you're a skilled rosin maker and you can you know, create a product that people are real into, you can do real well.
Can you do it's all because small batch, right? Like, because you can do a small batch rosin press and do it for a fairly small budget and kind of build that demand in real time and scale up the whole operation as one, rather than having to invest in significant pricey CO2 extraction equipment, for example.
Or my buddy built a rosin press out of hydraulic presses. He went to the hardware store and, you know, maybe spent like $500, and he was making amazing rosin with it too. So, you know, if you have any kind of technical skills, you can build your own rosin press.
You can, but I mean, honestly, I highly recommend letting engineers make sure that you're not going to have a spring pop out and freaking stick.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, no, I did say you got to have the technical skills.
Yeah, you definitely want to know.
Not just any Joe Blow. My buddy was like an engineer that built it.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. So be an engineer if you're going to build your own. Friggin' anytime you're working with extraction, I mean, there's a lot of like propensity to get hurt. Everyone's real excited. It's you're trying to make the best product you can, you know what I mean? And, like,
and there's a lot of crap rosin presses out there too that look professional and they're bullshit. Like,
oh yeah, there's a lot of garbage out there for sure. I mean, honestly, freaking like a lot of the guys that I see are using the Sasquatch and similar, you know, I mean, we all know the good brands. And I mean, I like usually stick with whatever makes the most sense, honestly. I mean, and I mean, shoot, man, I was there with the hair straightener, with the rest of them, trying to figure out how all this worked back in the day. You know what I'm saying? It's good times. But
that's funny.
And with rosin and now THC. Now again, anytime you're venturing into the THC industry, I mean, have a very well thought out plan and know your entrance to market strategy and know what you're doing and know that it's going to and know your market, because that one's difficult and expensive and has a very low chance of success in my experience. Whereas you can develop a small online business selling like hash rosin made from CBD, you know what I'm saying? And like set up a you know, I mean, or isolate or, you know, with terps or anything else, you know what I'm saying? And probably because you can do isolate with presses as well.
Really?
You can do
I didn't know.
you can do THC isolate with presses. I'm going to hold back on the CBD isolate. I actually haven't into that, but anyway, there's a lot of different things that you can do. And if you want to make a small cottage industry out of it, you know what I'm saying? That would be a way, washing like hemp that you grew yourself, that you've done a very good job on, and making it into high-end frickin' like rosins or melts would be amazing. And I think you'd sell. I think you'd sell it, and I think people would like it. But
I think it's an underserved niche in the game for sure. Obviously you guys know I've been talking about this forever, but I think it's underserved, and I think that no one's really getting on it. That, you know, a lot of it's because people aren't familiar with using CBD in a similar form that they use THC extracts in, whether it's dabbing or, you know, portable vaporizers. They're used to this CO2 or clear ethanol distillate vaporizer technology, or tinctures. So, which leads me to my next question. Is there a way, and I'm sure there is, I just don't know it, but how would you turn in let's say a high grade hemp or CBD rosin into a tincture? Would it be through some type of solution that would do it, like alcohol, or what would break that down to make it viable?
Well, you'd want to have some sort of process to make sure you've refined it as best you can. Otherwise, I think you're going to end up with some particulation,
lipids and whatnot. Yeah.
But like, I mean, as far as using the compound that you get out of and for doing that, I think it's a fine idea. I think it would be, you know, it's very natural. I mean, it's no salt, it's solvent free. I think it's a fine idea, and it would be fun. I think that making sure that it's safe and that it's food grade, you know what I'm saying, is going to be your biggest hurdle there. But I feel like even just the smoking, what I feel like, so I participate, you know, like some in the smoking of CBD, and I like it, and I like it for a couple different reasons. And one of the main reasons is because when I wake up in the morning, like I generally, I mean, it's smoking, you know, marijuana is one of the first things that I do. It is, and always has been. And it's, I mean, everybody's system is different. I run hot. It helps me, you know, slow down the
motor,
the train, and make everything work a little bit better for me. And so I do it right. I do it pretty much right away, but I can't do, you know, bong hit after bong hit all morning long and still be able to have all of my faculties necessarily. But I like to do that. Who doesn't? You know what I'm saying? So if I'm having one of those days, I just switch over to CBD, and I'll do a couple bong hits of CBD and then do a couple bong hits of THC, and they all kind of seem to level themselves out. Makes for a much more productive day in my experience, and I still get to do my smoking that I like to do. Works out
totally
good.
Nice.
I had a CBD extract vaporizer oil early on when I started using CBD, and man, I loved it, especially with balancing it with THC. You know, either before or right after. And you know, when you look at the science, you know, the way that the CBD cannabinoid pairs with the CB1 and CB2 neurotransmitter, it actually blocks the amount of THC that can be consumed through it, right? So does it matter how you? This is just a kind of random curiosity question. How does it affect you differently? And I don't know if you know this answer, but how does it affect you differently to have CBD before or after
That's
THC?
a good question.
Well, in my experience, and from what I understand of the endocannabinoid system, which is, I mean, I have a lot of information, and it's a lot of it's really great. You know what I'm saying? This is more speculation. You know what I'm saying? But like the way that I've understood it is that the CBD is more of an ignition source. It ignites that endocannabinoid system and creates a functioning environment where then, because it doesn't actually bond to receptors. That's the reason why it doesn't die. So like it just kind of makes the receptors work better and more efficiently. And so it creates an environment where everything functions the way that it's supposed to. And so your use of CBD should be a long-term goal use. Whereas, like, you know what I'm saying, if you're trying to, like, you know what I mean, reduce inflammation and all of that kind of stuff, I think there is some short-term benefits, you know what I'm saying? But the vast majority of it, in my opinion, is going to be a long-term, like, you know, I mean, I think that we probably were first introduced to this likely by, you know, chasing game through bushes. And we were chasing them through bushes of this plant, and we got CBD on us. And that was probably where it all began. That's how people figure out what they can smoke and what they can eat and all that kind of stuff is what looks good. Oops, sorry about that.
No, yeah, and I imagine it's a food source as well, just being so high in protein and omegas.
Yeah, and food sources and things
for
like
the
that.
animals too.
You know what I'm saying? And so as
Exactly.
you like if you think about it, so using some on your skin, like dermally, and some of it, you know, ingesting, and you know what I'm saying, having a smoke of it seems like a good, solid, well-rounded way, or inhaling it anyway, a good, solid, rounded way to get that job done. You know what I'm saying? And as far as THC goes, THC is more immediate. I mean, it's something that works on, like, I mean, like, we have a buddy right now that's been struggling with serious back pain since January, and like, it's a long time to be struggling with serious back pain, all hunched over and hurting, and like, you know, I mean, CBD has a potential to lessen the inflammation and everything like that. But like, if he can do a big dose of THC and it knocks him out, and and that stress position is no longer, and he's relaxed, and he can, and you know what I mean, and goes to sleep and spends 4 or 5 hours not clenched up for the first time in 4 months. You know, that's what THC is for. CBD works on a long-term basis, THC for short-term. That's the way I try to look at it.
Yeah, and then one other question, Chris, before, as we wrap it up here, if you had a CBD brand right now, like, where are the opportunities? Like, if you were launching a brand, where would you focus these days if you were doing something in the space?
I would focus on new technologies for delivery. I think that new technologies for delivery is going to be where people are going to be able to circumvent, you know, people being dug in the spaces that they're in right now. I think things like nano are really important. I think that people don't understand them very well yet, but I think that having a way of bypassing the liver with all of this stuff is a big benefit for everybody. And so I would look out for nano. There's lots of different delivery devices or delivery systems that are going to be popping out on the market. I would keep an eye out for all of them. Try to do something that, like, you know, I mean, you know, like, I understand that things like, you know, I mean, tincture sells, you know what I'm saying? People are buying tinctures, and that's great. It's just that there's already a flooded tincture market.
Yeah.
So making more tincture is a way to get in. I mean, if you can beat a price, or you can do something to get into the market that way, all for it. But I think a better like coming up with something, a different delivery system than that, where maybe it's a little bit less, you know, large and oily, or, you know what I'm saying, maybe a little tastier, maybe a little bit more, you know, palatable, like something that you like yourself. Do it for you. That's always been a huge success point for me, is when I'm trying to figure, like with hash itself. I mean, just trying to make hash that I want to smoke.
Yeah.
It's good enough for me. That was the whole trick, was just, I wanted it to be really good. I mean, and it was.
And those are the best. Those are the best and most popular companies, or the companies that do the best, I think, are the ones that are, like you just said. And even when I was a music producer, I would work with a lot of different artists. Some of the artists would make music for the public, and then other artists would make music that they liked and then hope that the public would like it or not care, either way. The people that made it for themselves were way more successful. Like,
Totally,
that's a cool analogy. That's I found the same thing to be true universally. That sounds like one of those universal truths where it's just kind of linear. You see it in all sorts of life.
They talk about, you know, marketers, and kind of closing thought, they talk about it with marketers all the time, where you're not your target market. Don't think yourself as your target market. But I'll tell you what, the times that I've found the most success is when I was a target market for my brand, and I understood it so deeply that I built it for myself. And if I wanted it, I knew how to communicate to other people why they might want it as well. So
and
I
that's kind of
definitely
like
think that's a
the
great
Steve
approach.
Jobs analogy. Like he said something like, I know what the public wants. They don't know what they want. I know what they want. You
Right.
know?
Yeah,
Because
oh
he knew
no,
himself
100%.
often.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because in some cases I'm the public, you know what I'm saying? And I found that to be true as well. I mean, the ones where I understood where I was part of that demographic and I understood it really well, I've been able to be more successful than the ones where I'm trying to break into somebody else's demographic. I just, it's harder to understand what's, you know, I mean, what's going to be popular with, you know, I mean, like mothers with children in their 30s for a 40-year-old, you know what I'm saying, that has no
Yep.
kids. So like,
Right.
you know, you know, it's different. So
Cool. Good stuff. I really appreciate it, Chris. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing all your insight with our audience. I think it's been tremendously helpful, and I'm excited to get you back on the show sooner than later so we can talk more about extractions and delivery method, because I think those two things, but paired, I think that's the key. If you can do extractions, improve extractions significantly through craft extractions or just through a better extraction and get a better delivery method, now you're cooking with fire.
no, absolutely. And for all of those that were planning on doing bulk extraction and now are having to make a pivot that they weren't expecting into something
Totally.
more craft, I think that's a fun conversation as well, I think.
Cool. Let's do
I
that
agree.
soon, man.
All right, sounds great, guys.
All right, guys. We'll see you again next time, people. Have a good one.